Hi beauties, Rosie here from rosypena.com, a fashion, sewing, and lifestyle blog. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited that you're here. So in today's video, we're going to be doing another awesome episode of Sewing with Rosie, and we're going to be making my latest pattern release, which is the Kim skirt. So the Kim skirt is a fitted midi length dress. It goes to about your ankle, but you can play around with the length measurement depending on what size elastic you cut for the side seams. So like I said, the Kim skirt just launched today. You can grab your pattern for 20% off. Go ahead and enter the code KIMLOVE at checkout, and that'll get you 20% off your pattern. If you guys are just interested on how to sew with knits or how to sew underlining, you can really get a lot out of this video as well. So you don't need to purchase the pattern to watch the video, but of course I do appreciate any purchases that you do make. It does help me grow this channel and get supplies so that I can film more Sewing with Rosie episodes. So again, I appreciate any and all of the support that you guys show for my patterns. Again, you can grab your Kim skirt at rosypenapatterns.com, and I'll have it linked in the description bar below as well. So like I said, the Kim skirt is a fitted skirt, so you want to make sure you choose a fabric with a really good stretch recovery. So whenever you stretch your fabric, you want to make sure that it goes back to shape really nicely. So the pattern actually has negative ease, meaning that the pattern pieces are actually smaller than your body. So you want to make sure that you choose a fabric with a good enough stretch. But I'll talk more about that in the sewing tutorial video as well. You will need some nice structured knit that has a good stretch recovery to it. You'll need that for your main fabric, and you'll also need some fabric for your underlining as well. So if you guys had wondered the difference between lining and underlining, I'll cover how to sew an underlining in this video. So make sure you grab your fabric and your Kim skirt pattern, and we can go ahead and get started. All right, you guys, in today's video, we're going to be working on the Kim skirt. So you're going to need some Ponte knit, a good structured knit. You're also going to need 1/2 inch elastic. So you'll need quite a bit of this elastic. It's going to be measured your waist to ankle measurement, and you're going to need 2 of these for both sides of your body. Also want to make sure that the fabric you choose has a good amount of stretch recovery, meaning whenever you stretch the fabric, it goes back to shape really nicely. Definitely choose a fabric that has a good amount of spandex or lycra. You'll want at least 40% stretch in your fabric. The pattern pieces that we'll need are pattern piece number 1, which is your front skirt. You're going to cut this one out of your main fabric, and you're also going to cut it out again out of your underlining fabric. So the skirt is going to be underlined. Next, you'll need 2 of pattern piece number 2, which is your back skirt. So you'll need 2 of your main fabric, and you'll also need 2 of your underlining fabric cut in the same way. Make sure you transfer those notches on your pattern to your fabric. You'll also need 2 of pattern piece number 3, which is your waistband, and you'll just cut this out of your main fabric. So the first step in the sewing process is to grab your back pattern pieces along the center back seam, matching those double notches, and you just want to pin along the entire center back. You want to repeat the pinning process to your underlining fabric as well. So like I said, go ahead and grab your back underlining pieces as well and pin that along the entire center back seam, again matching those double notches. And take your fabric to your sewing machine, and you're going to sew with 5/8 inch seam allowance along the entire center back seam on both your underlining and your main fabric pieces. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end of your seam, and also remove those pins as you go. Since we're working with knit fabric, you want to make sure that you're using a zigzag stitch. Usually on a vertical seam in a knit fabric, you can get away with using a straight stitch, but since this garment is a fitted garment, you want to make sure you use a zigzag stitch all the way throughout your sewing. If you want more tips on how to sew with knit fabric, I'll have a great blog post linked in the description bar below. Now that we've sewn both of our center back seams, we're just going to press the seam to one side. Since we're underlining our garment, you don't have to worry about neatening that seam with a serger. You can just go ahead and press it to one side. Go ahead and repeat that to your underlining fabric as well. Now that we've pressed those seams to one side, we're going to grab our underlining fabric with the wrong side facing up, and we're going to bring our main back piece with the wrong side facing down. So the wrong side of the back skirt piece is matching the wrong side of the underlining back skirt piece. You want to make sure you have the seams facing in opposite directions, that way you don't create unnecessary bulk at your seam. So go ahead and just pin your layers together all the way around. So all the way around the waist seam, the side seam, and the bottom hem as well. We're just going to baste these pieces in place so that they become one piece of main fabric. Before we go to our sewing machine to baste those layers in place, you want to repeat that same exact process to your front main skirt piece as well. So go ahead and grab your front main skirt, and you're going to place that with wrong sides together to your front underlining skirt pieces. Again, with wrong sides facing. Go ahead and pin all the way around the perimeter of the skirt. Next, you want to grab your skirt waistband pieces, and you're going to place them with right sides together, and you're going to pin along both of the short side edges. Go ahead and take your fabric to your sewing machine, and you're going to sew your waistband side edges with 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Next, you want to use a basting stitch. So a basting stitch is just the longest stitch setting on your machine. It's a temporary stitch used to temporarily hold fabric in place as you're sewing. So go ahead and just use a basting stitch to sew around all the pinned edges of both of your skirt layers. Again, you did this process to your back skirt pieces, and you also did this process to your front skirt piece as well. So go ahead and baste those layers in place. Working on your waistband piece, you're going to press that side seam to one side, and then you're just going to fold the waistband onto itself with wrong sides together. So go ahead and press the side seams and neaten any loose threads that you may have. And then again, you want to fold the waistband onto itself with wrong sides facing. And go ahead and just press that all the way around to neaten. Next, we're going to place our front skirt to our back skirt with right sides facing, and we're going to pin along both side seams. You have both side seams pinned. Go ahead and take your fabric to your sewing machine, and you're going to sew with 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way along both side seams. Again, make sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end of your seams, and also remove those pins as you go. Once you've sewn the side seam in place with 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, we're actually going to sew again very close to the raw edges of the layers. This is going to create a casing so we can insert our elastic at the side seam. So again, working on that seam allowance, you just want to sew very close to the raw edge of the layers, creating a casing for your elastic. Once you've sewn the side seams and created that elastic casing, you want to grab your 1/2 inch elastic and cut that your waist to ankle measurement. So from the side of your body, you want to just place the elastic at your waist, and then you want to measure that down to your ankle. Go ahead and add 1 inch to that measurement, and then you're going to cut that out 2 times. Once you have both of your elastic cuts, I'm just going to grab my bodkin tool and I'm going to clip that to one end of my elastic. And then I'm going to insert that into the side seam casing and just go ahead and sift my elastic all the way through. Once you get to the other side of the casing, make sure you extend that elastic by 1/2 inch and pin in place. Go ahead and repeat that to both ends of the elastic, and then repeat that process to the other side seam as well. Once we have the elastic pinned in place on all of the opening edges, go ahead and take your garment to your sewing machine, and then you're going to press those side seams and the elastic towards the back. So go ahead and just baste along the layers in the elastic, again making sure you press that seam towards the back. Secured that elastic in place with a basting stitch along all of the opening edges. We're going to go ahead and turn our garment with the right sides facing out, and we're going to be working on the waistline of the skirt. So go ahead and grab your waistband, and you want to pin that with right sides together, matching the side seam of the waistband to the side seam of the skirt. And go ahead and just stretch the waistband to fit the waist of the skirt. The waistband is made slightly smaller than the skirt waist. This is done so that the garment will cinch at the waist and fit along your waistline. And take your garment to your sewing machine, and you want to sew the waistband in place along the waistline of the skirt. So go ahead and start at one side seam, and again making sure you're using a zigzag stitch. Go ahead and sew all the way around with 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you've sewn the waistband in place, go ahead and neaten the seam with a serger or your desired method, and then you want to press that seam away from the waistband. Go ahead and just press that at your ironing table all the way around. At this point, you can go ahead and try your skirt on and determine how much length you would like to hem from the bottom of your garment. Go ahead and determine that length, and then you want to press that measurement up at your ironing table using a seam gauge. So I pressed the hem up by 1 1/4 of an inch. Again, try your garment on and determine how much of the hem you would like to press up. And then go ahead and just press that measurement up at your ironing table all the way around. Now you want to sew very close to that serged or raw edge along the hem of your garment. So go ahead and sew again using a zigzag stitch all the way around the bottom hem of your skirt. Once I've sewn the hem of my garment, I'm going to bring in my pressing cloth, which is just a piece of silk organza, and then I'm going to use that to press along the hem of the right side of my garment. Once you finish pressing the hem of your garment, you are all done sewing the Kim skirt. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you stick around to the end where I'll insert some more photos of me wearing this skirt, and also check the description bar below. That way you can grab the Kim skirt for yourself. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Alright you guys, you are all done sewing the Kim skirt. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure you check out rosypeñapatterns.com so you can grab a copy of the Kim skirt for yourself. Any support that you guys show to Rosy Peña Patterns, it definitely helps me to grow this channel and film more episodes of Sewing with Rosy. But like I said, I really hope you enjoyed the video regardless of if you get the pattern or not. Hopefully you learned how to sew an underlining and also how to insert elastic into a casing, and definitely more tips on sewing with knits. Make sure you stick around to the end where I'll insert some more photos of me wearing this Kim skirt. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!